Little Nightmares was something of a surprise hit for publishers Bandai Namco and developers Tarks Studios in 2017. Its odd out-of-season April release seemed to do nothing to stop this little horror romp from picking up steam, and if you've ever had the chance to play it, you may understand why. There is something uniquely conversational about Little Nightmares, something that stokes the mind and imagination and sparks the flames of fan theories all around the web. However, the truth of the game may be much more shallow than it appears, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Let's start looking at Little Nightmares by digging into the gameplay mechanics. After that, we'll talk about the story and how it's presented and how it became such a powerful conversation piece. So Little Nightmares is a horror-themed puzzle platformer similar to games like Limbo. There's very little in the way of controls for this game. You merely have a run, a jump, a crouch, a lighter, and a grab button. The lighter can be used to provide light in dark places and light torches along the way. The grab button works as a hold rather than a toggle control. With this, you can grab onto ledges to hoist yourself up, you can climb ropes and ladders, and you can pick up, carry, and throw environment objects, which comes in handy for the more puzzle-oriented elements of the game. Most puzzles simply revolve around finding a way to escape a room, usually by traversing the environment or finding ways to hit new switches and levers. If they don't revolve around that, then chances are they all revolve around stealth mechanics, finding ways to remain hidden from the creepshow enemies who lurk in the shadows. Each chapter introduces a new type of enemy, and along with them a new method of avoiding their detection. These creepshows are sights to behold, my favorite of the bunch definitely being Tweedledee and Tweedledum from Chapter 2. These guys looked creepy enough as it is with their messed up faces, but if you pay close enough attention you'll notice something far more disturbing about them when they go to scratch at their chins. These aren't faces, they are masks. This kind of thing gets me. For as many creepy things as there are, however, we have an equal amount of cute things to match, like these little gnome guys. They're not easy to find and they start off being scared of you, but if you can chase them down and give them a calming hug, you'll find a small degree of friendship in them that casts a ray of light on your otherwise dark journey. The controls in Little Nightmares are serviceable, and the sense of weight when using your grab to pick up and drag objects feels amazing and real, but there are times when environment detection feels a bit off. Kind of clunky or overly fussy. If you're not facing a ledge at the absolute perfect angle sometimes, your grab just won't trigger. With how fluid general movement feels, having clunky detection does make this a bit cumbersome, but it's never too large of an issue. Little Nightmares is a very well-crafted adventure that takes you from one amazing set piece to the next. However, this is a game that is completely devoid of dialogue. And so the story becomes one that you largely have to piece together or make up on your own. What we know for certain is that we are on a boat. We awake here at the start and need to find our own way out. Everything we encounter along the way is simply just a consequence of what else is here with us. Nothing is directly explained beyond this premise, and as such, the vast majority of everything else in the game can only remain as theory. The incredible things we see along the way encourage us to come up with some sort of understanding of what this place is. This place known as the Maw. In essence, Little Nightmares is just a story of a small character in a big messed up world trying to find their way out. There's no dialogue, so everything else is just conjecture. From here, I want to get into a bit of spoiler territory to discuss more in depth why this game spread like wildfire at its release. So if you don't want to see that, by all means, click to this part of the video. With that out of the way, let's carry on. Throughout this adventure in Little Nightmares, we encounter a great many things. Early in our adventure, when our nameless main character is keeling over in hunger, a mysterious stranger offers a piece of food through a set of prison bars. This food satiates our main character's hunger, but not for long. As the adventure continues, we need to keep consuming, and every time we do, we consume something larger and more dear to us. It's easy to look at this and see something of an allegory for addiction, where we start with something small, but the more we indulge, the larger the indulgent needs to be to have any effect. But I personally felt it was something a little more on the nose than that. Consumer culture. Themes of consumption can be seen all over the game. As you journey further into the game, you discover these obese, corporate, fat cat-looking characters who come to this ship to indulge in its grotesque banquets. This can be an allegory for anything less than legal that can be easily indulged in by the richest people in our society, When you can easily consume anything with a price tag on a store shelf, you run out of ways to show your financial elitism. So how do you go up from there? Some people, I guess, would take to trophy hunting, but others still take to illegal indulgences like dogfighting, arms dealing, drugs, sex trafficking, or worse. In Little Nightmares, this illegal indulgence is represented by a feast. What do they feast on? Human meat. If you want to look deeper into the use of human meat as our representation of consumer culture gone to the extreme, you can view this as the victims of the rich and their insatiable appetites. Nothing comes free, and things that come illegally often have plenty of unseen victims pulled from the underbelly of our society. Observing these obese, grotesque characters, they all appear to have a very American style, yet the setting for the banquet is very Japanese. A small windowed look at how many people will cross cultures or head into international waters to indulge in things not offered in their own country. Is any of this allegory legitimate though? Not really. According to the developer, there's not really anything deeper going on here. This ship is just a place for wealthy people to come and feast on the meat of children. We are a child who was abducted and going to be served in the feast, and we need to find our way out. Along the way, we get hooked on the same sick crap the rich people are, and the rest is history. There's plenty of other things to theorize about in the game. Of course, the geisha-like lady clearly has a problem with vanity. But again, according to the dev, there's nothing here beyond what we see. The developer did say, though, that there is a reason why nobody in the game speaks. I think the biggest reason is for us to think and figure things out for ourselves, even if there's nothing technically to figure out. The power of Little Nightmares is what you will think and feel along the way. The game is begging for you to figure something out that isn't there, and throughout the course of doing this, you will drift into some rather emotive thoughts. Granted, these thoughts are things you'll likely find contradictions in later, but even if only for a brief period you felt something emotive and intriguing, I'd say that makes this worth the play. I think that in playing through this, everybody will internalize what they see in different ways. At one point, my mind was stirring with thoughts about Dante's Inferno and the Circle of Gluttony, and I found myself trying to graft the layers of hell onto my adventure. This proved to be fruitless, but a fun mental exercise nonetheless. Sure, maybe this aspect is a lot of smoke with no fire, but the smoke show is still wildly intriguing. Now let's take a quick look at some technicals. I love the look of this game. It's not exactly a graphical powerhouse, but what they choose to detail and what they don't, combined with some fantastic lighting effects and scene composition, makes this a very picturesque game. The characters and set designs are simply fantastic. Disgusting, sure, but fantastic. The OST in Little Nightmares I did find mostly forgettable, but there were some great tracks that seemed to channel the identity of 80s horror movie soundtracks. The sound design as well was pretty darn good, but there was one choice I just can't wrap my head around. Why? Why in the name of God, the fart noise? It is, of course, just one sound effect, but its odd placement kind of ruins some parts of the game. The game runs really well, however load times are a tad on the ridiculous side. The biggest detriment, I would say, is the game length, at only around 6 to 7 hours. Honestly, this wouldn't bug me as much if there wasn't 3 more DLC chapters that seemed like they'd round the length of the game out really nicely for its price, but it is what it is. The adventure without the DLC is still an excellent way to spend time, and I would hesitate to say that it isn't worth the price of admission. I just wish that we had a pack that came with all the DLC chapters packed in. If you like games like Limbo or indie-ish horror games at all, I think Little Nightmares is worth the play. Its ability to get you thinking beyond what the game itself actually has to offer makes the whole experience one to remember. If you find you're not that deep of a thinker and prefer things to just be a little more straightforward, I think you would still get your kicks out of this through the sheer virtue of its amazing sets, sequences, and disgusting enemy designs that are sure to make your skin crawl. Little Nightmares is a fantastic little experiment in horror storytelling, and I cannot recommend it enough. I had always heard it was good, but it honestly went well beyond my expectations. It won't be for everybody, of course, but no game ever is. And the biggest things I got out of my experience were kind of tangential, but they wouldn't have happened without the game acting as a catalyst, and so I do hold this in very high esteem. If you haven't played this yet and you're interested, It's time to seal the deal and finally do it. I know I am glad that I did. And that's all I'm going to say on Little Nightmares. If you guys found this video helpful or useful at all, you know the deal. Like, comment, subscribe, and share the video if you can. If you really like the content, consider supporting the show on Patreon, where you get videos like this one a week early. As always, folks, thanks for watching.